Hey guys, welcome back to Mountain Murders Offbeat.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Yes, you are. I love how you kind of did like a jazz hands.
You
when
like
you
that?
said I'm Dylan.
Spirit fingers.
Sometimes I wish that we were recording like a live where people could actually see how animated and exuberant you can be.
Well, I don't think they want to see my big stupid head. But,
Well, I mean, it would probably take up the whole screen, but that's okay.
They'd be like, was that little hands beside that monstrous head?
Big-headed fucker.
Yeah.
I know I told you the other day someone took your porn star name.
Yeah, small hands.
Small hands. Yeah.
Yeah,
Married to Joanna Angel, small hands. So, sorry, Dylan. You're going to have to come up with something else.
I'm a pretty big guy, big broad-shouldered guy. I'm a solid 6 foot on Tinder.
What are you trying to sell yourself?
No, but I'm saying it's...
Are we trying to find a wife?
Oddly enough...
Sometimes I think we need a wife for this marriage.
Oh, like a
like
second
your wife needs a wife? Yeah.
You know what? I feel like you guys would hang out and I'd be left out in the cold.
We would just sit around like getting high and drunk. Hey, if there's anyone out there who wants to be my wife, our wife, I mean, we're pretty fun. We're laid back.
Yeah, I work all the time.
I'm not the most domestic person, and I will admit that. Like, I've always been very, like, career-minded. So staying at home and kind of being the domestic is kind of a new thing for me.
So what you're saying is you don't find joy in domestic duties like I do?
Yeah, Dylan actually really enjoys like being a house husband.
I could just clean the house all morning and like have multiple rooms going at once and just have it all happening.
I mean, that's not to say that I don't do the household stuff.
You do what you absolutely have to consider yourself not nasty. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, you're insulting
I'm just kidding.
My domesticity.
That's a word. That's definitely a word. No, I'm not, and I'm just kidding for the most part. But you do these chores daily, every day, but you don't enjoy. You have this look on your face like you're not into it.
Well, part of me feels like I have to do it because it gives me mad anxiety if it's dirty, like if the floor looks dirty or there's like stuff out of place. I can't do it. But I have a lot of other things that I do as well. So it would be nice if we had a wife and she wouldn't mind doing the domestic stuff, and then I could work on Mountain Murders and all of my other little side projects.
Whoa. I mean,
right?
You're going to have to jazz it up. You're going to have to sweeten the pot for her, surely. Does she get an expense account?
She would get to look at your big head all the time. You'd get this big-headed fucker with his broad shoulders, and he's 6 foot on Tinder.
Yeah, but I was going on to say, before you attacked me, basically.
Attacked you?
Yeah. And I have little feet and hands.
You do have tiny hands and feet. It's pretty cute.
Yeah, I got little Whopper Junior hands, Like if I try to hold a whole Whopper, it's off.
Our hands are like the same size.
And so when I'm working with my buddies on a fence, they'll go through Burger King. They both get a Whopper, and they'll order me a Whopper Junior because they said I can't hold the big one.
Well, it's true, but your little hands are efficient.
But
you have strong little hands.
I must say that does not translate into every part of my body. Whoa.
Yeah, because you got that big fucking head.
I got this monstrous head while I'm talking about, folks.
I feel like if we measured your head, it's like as big around as like my waist if we did a measurement. He's got like a 30-inch head. I'm
not going to carry on about my head because I'm afraid I might say something offensive that's going to offend someone out there. But yeah, my head's monstrous.
You have a big head.
Yeah, I
feel sorry for your mother.
I think I have a borderline issue of some type that's never been diagnosed.
Some big cranial bone issue. I don't know.
Okay, enough about my big head. Okay. And I am very happy to be here, and you are as well. We missed last week's Offbeat.
You've been working like a crazy person.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm wrapping up 14 days straight.
Gosh.
Flipping from nights to days back to nights on 12-hour shifts with an 18-hour transition shift mixed in there.
That just makes my eyeballs gloss over.
Oh, my God. But here we are. We're back. And we have some pretty interesting things to talk about today.
Well, we decided this week's Offbeat should be dedicated to unpopular true crime theories or unpopular true crime opinions. We even took to the internet to ask our friends on Facebook and Instagram what were some of their favorite true crime theories that are not popular opinions. So can I just get started with a hot take? It's not a true crime opinion, but since we're out to piss some people off today, apparently, I got to start with this. Britney does not need freeing.
Britney Spears
Have you ever watched that girl's Instagram feed? You watch her on TikTok, right?
I saw her for the first time on TikTok the other day. She was in her closet, of a huge closet with all these clothes and costumes, and I caught the tail end of a live, just scrolling through, and apparently she had just finished up a performance.
Yeah.
And she had the little mic on and everything, was thanking people for being there, and it looked like a blind monkey dressed her and did her makeup.
Yeah.
And she does not look well.
Someone needs to wash the girl's face. She needs a shower. She does not need free. Clearly she has problems. And watching her sort of devolve on Instagram, even when people are like, free Britney, poor Britney. I mean, yeah, poor Britney, but no, I don't feel like this is a person who's capable of taking care of themselves.
Well, that's what it boils down to. They're talking about her having full control of her financial, all her finances, and she still has quite a bit of money left because she made so damn much.
I'm sure she does.
And I think if you just watch her for a little while, I think she definitely needs help, and she needs stewards of some type. And that doesn't mean someone taking, because I just honestly think if tomorrow she had all control of all her business and finance and stuff, some asshole would or assholes would come in and take advantage of that poor girl.
Poor girl still wearing those outfits from the early 2000s. She's like the crop top queen, and when she posts videos of herself dancing, it's just she's spinning in circles.
Yeah.
And I don't know. She needs help. I don't think she needs freeing. So that's my first hot take, my first unpopular opinion.
Oh, my God. Leave Britney alone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for real. Leave her alone because obviously she's got something happening with her. She needs some assistance, right?
Yeah. So, yeah. But we're not out to piss anyone off with these unpopular opinions. And you may share our opinion of the case, but it's just sometimes the more...
Well, every time you make a hot statement or something that's unpopular, somebody's going to be like, oh, that's wrong.
And that's fine. But, I mean, sometimes these bigger cases, most of these are bigger cases we're talking about today, the more and more you think about them in your true crime mind over and over as the years go by, some parts of it, and more information becomes available sometimes, it just can change your opinion of what you thought in the first place.
Would you like to start with some of our listeners' opinions or just dive right into our unpopular true crime theories?
We have some good ones, I think, and I'm sure the listeners do too, but let's drop a couple of ours and then let's dive into the listeners.
Okay, because our listeners have some interesting opinions.
I'm sure they do because they're really smart people.
Okay, so my first hot take on a true crime case, Dylan, is that Stephen Avery is guilty.
Whoa. Now, I feel like this is a big one right here because there was so much discussion over the Netflix documentary as one of their first really huge
true crime
murder documentaries. And so tell me why.
Well, it was a docuseries, and it came out, 2015, 16? So it's been out some years, but I feel like it's heavily slanted. It's not an objective, documentary-style series at all. It's got a big slant, which clearly can change people's opinions when you're getting a subjective point of view. So Stephen Avery, what was it called? Making a Murderer?
Yes.
Is the name of the docuseries. He was convicted of murdering a young girl named Teresa Hallback. She disappeared Halloween of 2005. She worked as a photographer for Auto Trader. She had gone out to Stephen's property where his family owns a salvage yard.
And she'd had multiple interactions with Stephen.
And he was creepy. She didn't like him too much. She didn't care for him too much. But she goes out there to shoot photos of or take pictures of a van that he had for sale.
It was like a 91 Cavalier. Some shitty
weird
car.
Thing. Anyway, she goes missing. They end up finding her Toyota RAV4 in Avery's salvage yard. There is evidence. They convicted him, but then other folks have said no, he was framed.
Yes, and the motive to frame him is he had a case years earlier?
Yeah.
Against them, in the same county, and he was released after being in jail for
18 years.
He was in jail for a long time.
Rape and assault or something.
Yes.
He was wrongfully convicted. He's got a huge lawsuit against the county for this wrongful conviction.
A lawsuit, it's a really small county, so this lawsuit's a big deal. It could actually cause them financial issues.
Like bankrupt the county.
Right.
So a lot of people think the county has framed him so they don't end up having to like pay out any money. So here's why I think that he is guilty. All the steps that law enforcement would have to take to frame him just seems ridiculous to me. Because it would be a lot.
That's the thing about conspiracies, some of these more intricate conspiracies that's been talked about over the years. It's hard to keep everyone's mouth shut and all this under wraps. So it's very hard to pull off a conspiracy.
There were blood stains in the interior of her RAV4 that matched Avery's DNA. There were charred bone fragments in a burn pit near his home on his family's property. The theory that blood was planted in the car is because there was some sort of blood vial that had been punctured. And so people think that the police punctured this blood vial and then put that blood evidence inside the car. But the FBI tested that blood evidence and there wasn't a chemical, and the abbreviation for it is EDTA. I'm not even going to attempt to say the name of this gigantic chemical
some additive
preservative type of thing that would be in a blood vial.
To keep it preserved,
right.
basically.
And there was no traces of that EDTA at all in this DNA found inside the vehicle.
So the police already had a sample of Avery's blood from the previous case, is that right?
Yes.
Wow, they held on to it that long. That's interesting. And so supposedly there was a needle mark in the top of it, and that's how they got the blood, and that's how they planted the very small amounts of blood found inside the interior of the car. And but then the FBI comes in later, quite a long time later, and tests those same samples, and they cannot find the additive that would most definitely be present inside the blood vial, correct?
Right. I mean, that's what the FBI is saying.
That blood vial was one of the pieces of evidence that I was like, oh my God, they are framing him. Some of these things I was just like, wow, I think they might really be framing him. So if you take the blood vial off the table, if you can, there's no additive found by the FBI, they're pretty good at that stuff. That is that makes me wonder. And then what else do you have on that?
Well, I don't believe his nephew, Brendan Dassey, was involved. They got this kid. He's, got cognitive issues, basically got this false confession out of him. I don't believe that boy is involved. But I do think that Stephen Avery killed Teresa Hallback, but maybe not in the way that the prosecution or that law enforcement has presented. Like
right.
They tried to make it out like he, raped her and
in
had her
garage.
He had her all tied up in leg cuffs and all this crazy shit. And I don't necessarily think that's what happened, but I do think he murdered her. And no, I do not believe in court that they were able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was guilty. But that doesn't mean that he's innocent.
So another sticking point for me is they're in the business of destroying cars, mashing them up, and getting rid of them. So why in the world would you have this car of this girl you just killed stuck out on the outer edge of your property? Why wouldn't you at least piece it, tear it into pieces very quickly because you have all the equipment? That I always found interesting. One, he could have been arrogant and think he's like getting away with this and smarter than it. I don't know why I think he just, I'm sorry, the whole family's kind of, I'm not sure. Maybe not the sharpest knives in the drawer. And so I've always wondered why he wouldn't have crushed the car and smashed it up instantly. Maybe he didn't have time. And so what you're saying is maybe the cops got the scenario wrong. Well, that could explain why they think it went down in the garage, and then the forensics got no evidence from the garage. Maybe it didn't go down in the garage. Maybe they just have the whole story wrong in their head.
Well, that's kind of what I think, and because of that and the narrative that police have presented, and then there's not a lot to back that up, it makes it easier to believe that he's innocent and that they're framing him. I think they just got the story wrong. But I think you have to look at it by, okay, for example, Stephen Avery, his behavior is very irrational, right? We agree he's probably not the smartest guy out there. Okay, he's not Einstein.
That's no slide
fine.
Against him.
He's doing his thing, but he's got very irrational behavior. His world is very irrational. That whole family is very irrational, and I think it's hard for quote unquote normal people like us from the outside looking in to see this family and understand anything about them or how they function, or we see them as like, wow, they're kind of fucking dysfunctional, right? Like the Wild and Wonderful Whites or something. You can't help but be a little judgy about them because they're just a really odd, weird, not quote unquote normal type of family, right? So everything they do doesn't make sense. So it's hard for us to look at them and rationalize what they do. It's easier for people like us to kind of come up with a theory of like why than to just accept that like these people just kind of fucking crazy. And on top of that, I mean, their whole world, like I say, is just kind of irrational. We've got him, you know, they brag about driving drunk, burning cats.
Yeah, who does that?
I mean,
you got to be.
They're like in and out of jail.
You got to be a sicko to torture animals.
I think. Like, so to me, that's like not normal behavior. And I'm not saying that makes him guilty, but from the outside looking in, it's like, but nothing about this man makes sense to me.
Right.
Right.
And like you're saying, you cannot rationalize irrational
people
so
or the
behaviors.
Conspiracy makes sense because most of us can't make sense of Stephen Avery's world to begin with.
Right. So then it's easier to say, hey, it must be this conspiracy because none of this other stuff makes sense. And in the side of the conspiracy, you can say, well, the cops did that. Well, the cops did that. Somebody drove that car up on the edge of his property. And now her bone fragments found in the gravel pit on the property next door. I don't know about that. Possibly animals moving parts of the body. I don't know if that really makes sense. But, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, if you think about it from the perspective that he's innocent, I mean, you got to think about law enforcement. They're going to have to plant her car on his property. Right. They're going to have to go through all of that. They're going to have to plant the blood evidence, the keys. There's just so much that law enforcement would have to be so calculating and manipulative. And let's be honest, we have seen multiple law enforcement agencies that struggle to make a case that's very blatantly obvious. And I'm not saying that cops are stupid, but they're not always like the smartest people either. So for an entire police department, sheriff's office to be able to pull this off, you would have to have some like really brainy, clever, manipulative, calculating people on board.
Right.
Plus, I think anytime there's a big conspiracy, you've got multiple people, there's always a risk that somebody's going to end up tattling or squealing. And because this case has so much attention, if they had really done this shit, I feel like there would be somebody within that agency who would have come out and been like, yeah, we fucking planted this.
And they'd have went after the money. They got book deals. They would have been interviewed all over the place, and they would have made the money.
Because people, let's face it, cannot keep their mouths shut. We know this, especially when there's the promise of money or fame. Their 15 minutes of fame. And
I must say, when they were doing the video walkthrough of his home the first time, and the woman cop was talking, she sounded maniacal and vindictive. And maybe that's all pin-up stuff of we were wrong this time, but now we got you. Or, I mean, it didn't look, it was a bad look.
Plus, on top of it, think about, well, it takes a while for a body to burn, right? They end up finding these bone fragments, but this is a man, these are people, this is property where there's like junk and trash everywhere, right? It's not like Stephen Avery is keeping this property pristine.
No.
So why on this evening, and yes, it's Halloween, but why after this girl goes missing, is that the evening he chooses to decide he's going to burn his trash and junk?
Yeah, and he's going to have like a 12-hour fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is an open-faced fire pit. It is not in a barrel or anything to reflect the heat back. So he had to keep this damn thing roaring. And what would be good for that? Throw a few old tires or something crazy like that on there, and that'd be, really intense heat. So, I mean, it was a large property.
Which that's circumstantial, but it just doesn't make sense to me that of all the evenings, all the days you could be burning your trash, you just so happen to burn it on the day this girl goes missing. And, oh yeah, by the way, here's some charred bone fragments in this fire.
So, yeah, then if it's her bone fragments and the cops did plant them, where did they get the bone fragments from?
Well, there's that as well.
Did they kill her and burn her and then put them in there? I
mean, again,
they found her body that someone else had killed him, and they suspected somebody else, but they're like, oh, we're going to get Stephen Avery with this.
Well, again, sometimes I think the truth, it makes more sense than these far-fetched conspiracies. And even though people don't want to accept that Stephen Avery is just fucking guilty, I think he's just fucking guilty.
And I think the saddest part of this entire thing is Brendan Dassey.
Yeah, I agree.
He got drug into it. I don't believe he did anything. I could be wrong. I think he got drug into it. The cops already had it in their head. It was Stephen. That was obviously a coerced confession, obvious textbook. And I just think he just didn't know what to say or do. He literally was like, if I say this, can I go back to school? I have a project to do in like a last period.
Right.
I mean, how sad is that? And
yeah, I think if anything, he is the one in this case who's really been screwed over.
And I think that sympathy everyone feels for him, knowing his story, it bleeds over to Stephen.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, you know, and I think if Brandon was out of the scenario and you looked at just Stephen and what he did and the way things were laid out, you might be less sympathetic. We could be wrong.
No, we can be wrong. I mean, again, these are just like unpopular opinions and theories that folks have, and this just happens to be one of mine.
This is what we do at night. We just sit around and talk about true crime cases.
Right. And like I said, I mean, yeah, they could be totally wrong. We can come back in a year and find out everything we just said was completely false and we're full of shit, and that's fine.
Do you want to bring in a listener opinion right quick?
Oh, yeah. So my friend Tony had an interesting take as well, Dylan, and that is, I think the West Memphis Three are probably guilty and the Paradise Lost trilogy are propaganda for the free WM3 agenda. Eccles had a pretty extensive history of violence for someone his age and didn't just have a passing or healthy interest in satanic worship. He was pretty obsessed with it for an 18-year-old. None of them had a solid alibi, but Jesse Miskelly's multiple confessions and odd behavior the days after the murders are pretty damning. I don't think they mutilated the boys. I think Wildlife did that after they were dead. After reading through Eccles' court transcripts and interrogation transcripts, it's insane to me that people put him on a pedestal that he's on today.
Wow.
Interesting, huh?
That's a hot take.
You think so?
Yeah.
What is your opinion?
Well, I just think that's
West
such
Memphis?
a big case, and I think people have really strong feelings about it. That's another one that is just, I've been bumfuzzled, over the years. Honestly, I felt like the boys might be innocent because it was another situation with Brendan. You have Jesse, kind of with a low IQ, being pressured by the cops and all that. And maybe I'm
developmentally challenged.
Yes,
and
maybe
the story
I'm
changed quite a bit.
Bit biased from growing up in a small town, but I do know if you just wear black and act a little bit weird, that people blame you for every damn thing, right?
I'm actually surprised that we haven't been blamed for more things in our town.
It's true. Yeah, with the gore horror and the pentagrams on our car and the Route 6666.
Well, don't tell everybody our secrets.
Ooh, but you know what? It could be. I'm not going to say he's wrong. Because, it's his opinion. But I always found that the stepfather and then that one guy, the really weird one that kept talking crazy about the Bible and stuff with the no teeth and shit.
He was a stepfather as well.
He was a stepfather as well. And then you had the other father. Was it a father?
I think they were both stepdads.
Okay. Well, I always felt like they were strange characters in this case and really didn't, I don't know, their stories seemed odd to me.
Yeah. Even Pamela Hobbs, I think, has come out and said she thinks her ex-husband was involved.
But along the same lines as what we said earlier, it would make the most sense if those three boys did it because we felt like there had to be multiple perpetrators, right? To corral these three kids in this scenario down around this creek, not let any of them get away. And to the way they were killed and bound and stuff. So logically, it makes more sense if the young men did it and were doing thought they were doing some kind of satanic bullshit.
Right.
Logically, that makes sense, right?
To an extent.
But I've always believed one person couldn't have pulled this off.
No, it had to be multiple people.
It had to be multiple perpetrators, no matter who it was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
unless someone had a gun, but I still think that
I still
it's
feel like
multiple
one of the
people.
three kids might break, bro.
Yeah.
Just make a go for it, just out of fear.
So one of our Instagram
That's a good
followers, Fallon Macau, she said, "Gosh, I have a lot," and boy, she does. She is. Let's see. The jury got Casey Anthony's conviction right. She's 1,000% guilty, but there just wasn't enough evidence presented. After listening to Serial, I thought Adnan was not guilty, but then I read a few articles about the evidence not presented in Serial and some other podcasts, and now I think he's guilty. I think the Tiger King was abusive to animals and made threats against another person's life, so he should be in prison. And I think the staircase guy is guilty, and that the owl, basically didn't happen, that he's guilty.
The owl didn't do it, huh?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty interesting. Someone else says they have sympathy for the Mendez brothers, and they think it's time that they should be released from prison.
Well, I will say, and in one of those cases, a lot of times when there is a whatever it is it patricide, killing a parent, or matricide, mom or dad, from the children, that typically there is maybe
some kind of abuse,
something that drove them to do this. And some people may quickly say the Menendez brothers did it for money. Well, they were already living good. They had a great life, and they were going to get that money, regardless when their parents passed. So they didn't seem like they were in dire straits, or there's some financial burden, or they were overextended, and killing them would answer their, they already had the money. They were living in the middle of the money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. And the descriptions and the stuff of the abuse seem pretty horrible, and I think maybe that would be a consideration now to let them out.
Another person said Amanda Knox is guilty.
Is that that happened overseas?
Italy? Yes. Yeah. Meredith Kircher murder in Italy.
I'm not super familiar with that case. I'm not, I must admit. I know the basics.
It's a complicated case. I don't think she's guilty, but I think that the Italian investigators fucked that shit up so bad
that you'll never be able to prove who's guilty.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah. So my next theory, Dylan, is about Maura Murray.
Okay.
My next unpopular opinion. So on February 9th of 2004, she was driving on Route 112 near Haverhill, New Hampshire, when she rammed into a snowbank. There was a person who pulled over, like a bus driver, asked her if she needed help. She said, do not call police. I have AAA.
Okay.
She left school. She had emailed her professors, lied about having a family emergency. She withdrew all of her money from the bank. It was less than $300. It was like $240 or something. She had purchased some alcohol. Reports say her room was basically packed up. And so she just disappeared. Like, she was there on the side of the road, accident, and then like 10 minutes later, she's gone and has never been seen or heard from again.
So someone saw her not long after the wreck. She asked if she needed help. She said, no, I got it covered. And they went on, and the last person to see her.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your theory? That she left? She really left?
Well, true crime journalist James Renner has this theory of a second driver, that there was someone else perhaps following her.
Okay.
That, like, she had plans with this person, and that person picked her up and took her wherever she was trying to go.
Oh,
like
okay.
Maybe out of the country. There's been a lot of theory that she went to Canada and has just been like living and hiding, all these years.
So considering everything's packed up and money withdrawn and all this, she was doing the thing someone might typically do if they were going to disappear.
So
right?
This is okay. So here's my theory. A lot of people think she met with some foul play, that someone picked her up. They've killed her. There's theories that there was like some neighbor that could have been involved, that there's a police cover-up. I mean, there's tons of theories, right? But I think, this is my opinion again, that she met her end in the woods, that she died from exposure. It was about 38 degrees on the day she went missing. I think that she was a troubled young woman. There were too many coincidences that just show she was like a troubled young woman. I don't think she was picked up by a killer. I think that she possibly left school with suicidal thoughts on her mind, and that she had this wreck. It kind of sealed the deal for her. I think she kind of wandered off into the woods, and yeah, they've never found her, but the woods in New England are different than they are like where we are here in Appalachia. It's a very dense,
lots of undergrowth,
dense wooded areas.
Okay.
And then you've got to consider the temperature, the exposure. I think that she maybe downed some pills, drank some booze, killed herself, and that she's somewhere, skeletal remains somewhere in the woods.
Oh, okay.
It's my opinion. I think she committed suicide.
Oh, my
I don't think
gosh.
that she met with some nefarious character who offed her.
Oh, what do you think the odds are that... So she didn't take all her stuff with her, is basically just packed up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But she had like booze in the vehicle. She said she was going to stay at a cabin like in the Berkshires.
Oh, okay.
I believe, something like that.
At first, I wasn't familiar with this, but I have heard this story.
Oh, yeah. There's been like entire true crime podcasts dedicated, like multi-episodes dedicated to her case.
Yes, and then one of the last places she was seen was purchasing the booze.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So you don't think it's possible there was a second person that was following behind her that she was with, and they took her on to whatever plan she was doing, and she's just gone? Or do you think it's most likely that she was heading down a suicidal path, and I
think she was heading down a suicidal path. I think she was troubled, and that she just went into the woods and like ended it. That's honestly what I think.
Well, yeah, and you take an environment like that with the cold and the dense growth. It's not like you're going to, people aren't going to smell a body, until it kind of, I don't know what happened.
Now,
what happened
according to reports, she had a book in her vehicle, and it was marked at a certain spot. It's called Not Without Peril, and the pages that she had marked or bookmarked was a story of a hiker named McDonald Barr who had gone into like the New England woods and like disappeared, and I guess ended up dying.
Wow.
And that was bookmarked. So that makes me think she had some plans to go off herself in the woods.
That could be
not be discovered.
A coincidence, but I mean, dang, that's a pretty good coincidence. I have one.
What is your true crime?
Now, I know
unpopular theory, Dylan.
I'm going to try to ride the fence here and not really piss people off.
Why?
Because, I mean,
I don't think we're really going to piss people off. They're probably just yelling at us right now like, y'all are stupid.
Well,
I don't.
Fine. Okay, well, here it is. Jodi Arias.
Yeah.
Okay? She's not innocent. That's not what I'm going to say.
No, she did something.
She did it. Now, one thing me and Heather think is, how does she's teeny, right?
Very petite woman.
Very, very small. And Travis is a pretty big guy. Athletic.
Got those big shoulders, tall.
6+.
Probably got a big head like Dylan.
His hands and feet are much larger than mine, right?
Yeah.
And she gets to jump on him in the shower. And was he shot as well?
I can't remember.
I feel like it was knife work.
I know it was knife work. I'll check.
I'm sorry. See, this is true Dylan form. Sorry about this, guys.
With your story.
She gets to jump on him, even if she got...
He had a gunshot wound to the head, 27 to 29 stab wounds, a slit throat. Oh. His jugular vein and trachea had been slashed, and he had defensive wounds on his hands.
Wow. Okay. So, you could say she shot him in the head, and then she did all this shit after he's just laying there bleeding out, right?
Like in a rage.
How does he have defensive wounds? So that don't make sense, right? So he's active. During the attack, because he has defensive wounds. That sounds like it may have started with the knife. I just feel like I'm very surprised.
But here's my thing. If you've got, like, I'm just imagining little Jodi, right? And it's like Psycho. It's like a shower scene. And she's got this knife, and she's just like, like a little crazy, little Tasmanian devil. She's just stab, 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 right? Then where did she have the gun? She just pulls the gun out and like shoots him. Does she have the gun someplace else? Gets away, brings the gun back. I mean, I'm kind of like, was she wearing like a holster? Was she like Yosemite Sam and pulls the gun?
And I'm saying he gets no shot. He gets no wax in.
She's like one of the Austin Powers babes, and she's got like gun boobies.
Nobody reports seeing her bruised or black eye, or he didn't get any shot in at all.
No.
Okay, well, that can happen, but that seems a little unlikely. So it makes me wonder if she had some type of help, maybe, in killing him. And she's kooky enough to never say nothing about it.
I feel like maybe she did have help.
Possible, right?
Yeah.
Because here's this big dude, here's this little girl, and, it wasn't like he was shot 5 times, and that was the end of it.
I find it very strange that his roommate smelled this foul odor of death for days and didn't do anything.
That is very odd to me.
That does not make sense to me at all.
So you don't see your boy for days when he's normally in and out.
Something smells like a dead ass.
Something smells like the worst decay that you've ever smelled in your life. Way worse than an animal on the side of the road or bad trash. And you never investigate. You never like do a walk through his room and area.
You're like, why has this man got like an open faced roast beef sandwich in there, just rotting
and
away?
So what
no, it doesn't make sense.
The wound you're describing with the blood and everything, this is going to go south quick, right? That's going to be a mess, and it's going to be bad, and it's going to start smelling very quickly.
Decomposition is not going to be pretty.
No. And he just never thinks to himself, "Oh, I should check this out." Okay, so that's weird. Could he have been the person that helped Jodi in some way? I don't know. Am I casting stones? Maybe. Do I live in a glass house? Definitely not, because I'm poor. Only rich people live in glass houses.
In
Fancy
LA?
ones. Yeah.
In like the hills? Yeah.
So, my last part of this may seem rambly. It's just very weird to me. My last part of this is the most most firebrand statement. That's not right.
It's okay, baby. Bring it.
Oh my God.
Bring the fire.
Travis played head games with a crazy woman that he already knew was crazy. And I don't mean just a little bit. He was being very cruel.
Yeah, I mean, we throw the word crazy around a lot, but I think we can all say Jodi Arias is a crazy bitch.
When
people talk about a crazy bitch, when Buck Cherry's singing about the crazy bitch that fucks so good, we talking about Jodi Arias.
She's
right?
mentally unstable.
She is.
She's proven it time and time again to him. Like I told Heather, I said, if you go away from your home and you come back and some chick has broken into your house, not like the door was unlocked. She broke into your house and she's waiting in your bed naked. That's not sexy.
Can you imagine if roles were reversed? If it was a woman and she came home and her ex had broken in her house and you've got a naked dude waiting in bed like, hey, and he's all like rubbing his chest,
what the fuck?
Squeezing his nipple at her.
Yeah.
Yeah. People would be like, what the fuck?
So that's not to me.
But because it's like Jodi Arias, it's like, oh, well, that's kind of hot. And it's like, no.
No, it's not. It's not sexy.
Disturbing.
It's not hot. It is scary. And it's very disturbing. And it is the biggest red flag I've ever heard
Now
of.
I know what to do if we ever break up.
Don't do it. And so, but he continued after these multiple red flags and very.
Well, he totally played head games with her.
And
I think
it was cruel.
Even if he wasn't a quote unquote abusive, like her defense team tried to make him out to be, he played some fucked up head games with her.
I think
he was mentally and like emotionally abusive. And I'm not saying he got what he deserved, but it's like you play with fire, you get burned, buddy. And I'm not victim shaming the guy, but I also think like he wasn't a good person.
That's my point.
So quit trying to paint him out like people are like, oh my God, he was so wonderful. And I'm like, no, he was kind of a piece of shit.
That was my point.
Did he deserve to die? No. But he wasn't a good person, and what he did was wrong.
He didn't deserve to die. No one does. That's just normal who hasn't molested children or raped women. They deserve to die. But what he did to her was cruel, and he knew it. He's a smart guy, and he did it for whatever he got out of that relationship. And he kept on. And exactly like you said, you play with fire, you get burned. And unfortunately...
There's no way that situation was going to end well.
No, even if it hadn't been being stabbed and shot to death and your throat slit.
It was going to end in a very messy, not good way.
And he strung it along. I think if he'd have just cut it off, look, Jodi, no, I'm not going to see you, not going to talk to you, he may have had it. But he just kept poking that hornet's nest until she went the ultimate step farther. So I'm sad for him, but I really wish he had went a different way with her. My God. She has crazy eyes. Can we say that?
She does.
She has those like, okay, she's little, cute girl, whatever. But she's got them eyes, and you can't hide those eyes. And you've got to recognize those eyes when you see them.
Totally crazy eyes. Like it's a thing.
In a man and woman.
Yeah.
And when you see them, you got to understand this is like mentally unstable.
I see a lot of realtors, and I'm not trying to insult real estate agent. Hey, I worked in real estate for some years before the economy tanked, so whatever. But, realtors will always have like the headshot. I see a lot of realtor photos where I'm like, that dude got crazy. I would not buy a house from that dude. He looked like he got crazy eyes.
I would not want to be alone in a property with this guy.
Yeah, like maybe it's because they have their face plastered on bus benches and, whatever on the grocery cart at the store. But I just see a lot of realtors that I'm like, they got crazy eyes. And then I wonder, well, is there something about real estate that like attracts people with crazy eyes?
Well, I mean, they do typically the up close shot, and they're making that kind of similar expression. And I'm sure other realtors out there laugh at other realtors' headshots. I'm sure to a degree.
Oh yeah, they do.
But yeah, I know what you said, because sometimes you're going down the interstate, you see like a 200-foot billboard, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I'm like,
dude? Jesus,
that guy looks like he would murder my entire family.
Yeah, I'm not going to interact with that person.
That woman's an axe murderer.
Oh my gosh,
she wants to sell me a condo. Yeah.
Okay, do you have another one?
Well, you were talking about John Bonet. That was
yes.
your other theory. So what do you think about the John Bonet Ramsey case, Dylan? Because you had some interesting points earlier when we were discussing that.
It's been so long since I dug through that, detail by detail. This is not going to be detailed. It's just a basic thing.
Well, it's okay. We're nearing time anyway that we're probably going to have to wrap it up.
And you're used to me being not prepared. That's cool.
Yeah, it's cool. We know that you don't do your homework.
Look, it's a one basic point.
Dylan goes through life winging it.
She's
always
murdered inside of her family home. Okay? You shouldn't have to say anything else. 99.99% of the time, that is someone that lives in the home that is intimately connected to the child or the person who's been murdered. Period.
Yes.
Period. Because we have heard enough stories. We've all dug through enough cases. It just does not happen. A random stranger does not break into someone's home, and kids get snatched out of homes. That does really happen, and that's very scary. But then stays there and murders her like that. I'm sorry.
And knows to take her into like the basement, knows the area where she should be hidden.
Knows the home. It's like he's familiar with the layout of the home. It's not some random thing done in the living room or in a bedroom, and then it's just like, boom, you don't even get away with it.
And then how do you have knowledge of the layout of the home to find the child's room? I mean, there's a lot to that story that doesn't make sense. And I do buy into, there's so many theories out there about the mother, about Jean Bonnet wetting the bed and mom losing her temper. And to me, that makes more sense than this one-armed stranger. And let's think about it. Typically, if there's some sort of home invasion, like multiple members of the family would have been attacked.
Yeah.
Besides, like, the one child.
So, the one child, and it was a vicious attack, and no one hears anything.
And then
no one sees
little girl's body is, like, cleaned.
Right? This is time. They're taking all this time to do all these things.
Which is odd inside a stranger's home.
Yeah.
With a house full of people.
Even if you did break in, something went down bad, not how you planned it, you're going to want to get the hell out of there. Period.
Well, I like the theories that have been covered about her brother. They make sense. And then theories about mom make sense. But the others it just doesn't work for me.
It seems very improbable.
Yeah.
I mean, it really does.
Don't buy it.
I don't. When you break into the home, random stranger, you do get the pretty little girl or whatever. It's fucking horrible what happened to her.
Yeah.
I mean, it's disgusting. But I just think, and you got a family, affluent and prominent family, and we all knows how that shit plays out typically in most communities, and especially if you got some friends in high places. So I
pretty little white girl.
I just don't think it would have been handled the same. And a lot of times people's like, "Oh, it's the white girl." It's the affluent girl. When these cases,
it's a class issue.
It's a class issue. I think more times than race. Race does factor
money
in,
talks.
But class. It is about class, because you don't see sensationalized stories about little kids in the trailer park or out in the middle of nowhere.
No.
Or in the inner city. No, you don't, because they're poor and they're unconnected and people don't care. So,
just like we talked about the Atlanta child murders, and you have like 29 kids.
There you go.
And, John Bonet's case has so much attention, and then there are people who are like, I never even knew about the Atlanta child murders.
Yeah.
Or I never knew these kids' names or their stories. I didn't know anything about them.
Right. Well, and it's the same thing with us.
Well, because they're not wealthy.
Yeah.
They don't come from rich families with connections, and
it's the same way with
CEO and
sex workers. You can look in an area and be like, wow, 36 sex workers were killed in this area in the last decade. Well, what the fuck's going on here?
But an Ivy League college girl gets murdered.
Right. Goes to an island, makes a poor choice, ends up with some cocksucker out on a beach by herself, and then, which that was bad. And then next thing you know, it's like there's never been another murder ever, Like this is the worst thing ever. And it is bad, but we know what it is.
Yeah.
So I think the family's affluent. affluence, their connections, and the local authorities didn't dare, that would be the first people thoroughly, like, they would have been like, somebody in this house did this. That would be Cop 101 coming into the situation, right?
You would think it's always the husband or the family member. Anytime a child is murdered, parents are always like the number one suspects until they're not.
It doesn't make sense. I could be wrong. We could be wrong.
We're talking about access. I don't think that case will ever be solved.
No, it's over now. I mean, they're never going to double back on it. Unless someone with the intimate knowledge of what really happened comes forward, but they're either dead or not going to.
Yeah, I feel like that's a case that we'll never know the answers.
But I really don't believe it was a random individual from outside the home.
I don't either.
I think it is possibly maybe some type of abuse and accidental death. Or then you have the brother.
There was like a cover-up to protect the son.
Right. And then, the act of cleaning a body afterwards, unless it's strictly for, to get rid of evidence, you'll see it a lot of times in sexual assaults and things, think they're getting rid of evidence. But it also can be an act because of a remorse if you're connected to the victim.
Well, yeah, and if that was your little girl, you would take the time to like try to clean her and
Yep. It's the same thing when the body's covered up. When the body's been left in the scene and it's a sheet or coat or something thrown over the body, that's also another sign of a connection to that person, not wanting to see them that way. Wow.
Like a sense of remorse or guilt afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, Dylan, this has been fun. Thanks for tuning in to our Offbeat episode covering unpopular true crime opinions and theories.
Yeah, and if I loved our listeners ones. Wow, they were not playing around.
They had some interesting.
They was bringing the steam.
Theories out there, yeah.
Yeah, I like how they don't shy away from the big cases.
No.
Ooh.
Okay. I mean, we have many more. We may have to make this we may have to do a second episode because there's a lot.
Yeah.
I have some other interesting hot takes. Like I have a Jim Jones cult theory.
Oh my God. That can be in a whole episode.
We should talk about that.
That can be a whole episode.
Normally I would shy away from a big case like Jim Jones's cult, but I have a lot of theories about that.
There's a lot of moving parts to that. Jim was definitely a cuckoo bird, but if you listen to the Jones tapes, and the people pleading, trying to talk him out of what he's about to do at the very end, let alone how they ended up there or what happened afterwards. It is heart-wrenching. Because some people will stand up in favor. Yeah, Jim, we're with you, blah, blah, blah. And some people, please, what about the kids? And, oh, my God, if you haven't listened to the Jim Jones tapes, you have to do that.
Well, thanks,
and we'll talk about it later.
Now, I feel like I want to go back and watch Making a Murderer again.
We might do that.
I might have to revisit that.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I have a recommendation for folks. If you're looking for a good TV show, something to stream, I mean, I know a lot of you guys, like us, are tapped out as far as streaming because it's like all we've done for the last year with COVID. Everybody's been home. Movies really aren't being made.
They suck.
And the ones that are coming out are just like, what the fuck? Mayor of Easttown on HBO with Kate Winslet. Crime show. I liked it. It took me an episode or two to get into it, but then once I was into it, I liked it. And what I like about it is more character driven. Kate Winslet does a fucking amazing job. She nails the accent. Like, it's amazing. And I love physically, she looks like a real 40-something-year-old woman.
It's true.
They don't try to doll her up.
Nope.
She lives in a real-looking house. Everybody in the movie, or in the everybody in the show, it looks like real houses. It's not these Hollywood, everything's perfect and beautiful.
Right, like there's a table with stuff on it behind you.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like how real people live. She sits at the table, eats junk food.
And drinks Rolling Rock.
She fights with her mom and her kids. It's not like a picture-perfect situation. But it's really a good show. I liked it a lot.
It's very interesting, and it's definitely a slow burn. It'll take you an episode or two to get it, because at first you're just like, huh, and then you're like, wow, because that realism.
Well, at first I was like, she's not very likable.
Yeah.
But then as the show goes on, it's like she's very relatable.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. At first you're not really into her character,
She's
but then
really human. She's so much human with her
So that's
character.
a good one.
You know what I mean?
It's a good one. It's Mayor of Easttown, Mare. If you got HBO Max.
The other that Dylan discovered that we basically binged for like a week is called City on the Hill.
Ooh.
With Kevin Bacon. Is that on Showtime?
It's a Showtime series.
Another crime show.
And Kevin Bacon, and I forget the other dude's name, but he's really good in it. Really good. It's basically early 90s. Kevin Bacon's corrupt.
Boston.
Yeah, in Boston. It's produced by Matt Damon and, of course,
Ben
Affleck, the Boston Boys.
Well, you've got that Charlestown bank robbery, armed car robbery element, which Ben Affleck, I guess, was in the movie The Town, and I think he may have directed that as well.
Oh, yeah.
But it kind of focuses on that. I mean, it was like a thing that actually, really did happen for some time in Charlestown and Boston area. So you've got that aspect, which is real. Man, Kevin Bacon, he nails his character.
I'm telling you, folks, if you've ever liked Kevin Bacon or if you thought he was mediocre, watch this. He is amazing in this.
Yeah, watch him.
Oh my God.
Footloose like a badass in this movie with his terrible personality.
He's such a hateful
show. I keep calling it a movie.
Asshole that you're just like, what the fuck? But he's almost like lovable in a way.
You have to admire him for being such a fucking prick.
Consistent prick.
Oh God, he's just awful.
Okay, so check it out. City on a Hill or on the Hill on Showtime.
And Mayor of Easttown. There's your 2 suggestions from your friends here at Mountain Murders.
Get some.
All right, guys. We'll be back on Sunday. Got a good true crime case. Probably one you've never heard before.